Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome back to another episode of What's My 100%. I feel like this episode's going to be a little bit of free flow riffing this morning. It's morning for me. I'm always like doing check-ins with what time it is with you guys, I feel like. But it's currently 5:15 a.m. on a Monday morning in LA as I'm recording this, and I just have had so much early morning energy lately, which the way that I think of early morning energy is when I am just in a little bit of a sleepless state, but not in a bad way, if that makes sense. And I will go through seasons where I will wake up in the middle of the night and not be in sort of that restless, tossing, turning type of energy, but like where I just like wake up with ideas and with things that I want to get out. And I start feeling like a lot of creative life force energy, which is one of my favorite energetic frequencies to be in. Um, I had this a lot when I was writing my first book, Sovereign Love, and I'm working on another book right now. So it makes sense to me that some of this is starting to come in hot, and that I've just had a lot of what feel like downloads that start to come in the middle of the night. And a little bit about this book that I'm writing. I kind of want to talk about this morning because I was having a conversation with a very dear girlfriend of mine the other day, and we were talking about some of my perspectives on how I think that love is shifting and the ways that I think that we're moving away from the distorted energetics that have been alive in love and relationships for a very long time. And that I actually have a really hopeful perspective about some of the ways that, I think we hear a lot of headlines around all of the polarity and the polarization rather, and the division, and that, if we're speaking about it in the context of gender, that people are um, just sort of like a lot of angst there and not dating, not coupling. You hear people in a little bit of a younger demographic talking about not really being interested in partnership, and that people are sort of fed up with the dating apps. And I'm like, good today. And not exactly, but I think that we are overdue for a massive recalibration in the way that we look at love. And it's interesting. I think I probably shared on the podcast before, but just in case I haven't, I'll share it now. A few years ago, I had this download, this thing that came to me that the structure of relationships is really going to shift in the next several years, so much so that we move away from a paradigm where we believe that we're incomplete until we're in a partnership to a paradigm where we enter into partnerships when it's justified. And what that justification to me means is I'm actually living and putting all of my energetic resources into thriving in my mission and what feels like I, on a soul level, came into this life to do. And then when I collide with the souls that I am meant to dance with in the space of romantic love, then I'm certainly open to it, but I'm not holding my breath until that day comes. And I saw a reel the other day where it just felt like such a confirmation that this is a space that many women have embraced for themselves, which, just brought me more glee than I can possibly express. And the person that created the reel was using examples like Tracy Ellis Ross and some other, women who've really sort of embraced being self-partnered unapologetically and saying, my life is actually amazing and thriving and not incomplete. And I'm so open to love and connection when it's aligned, if it comes along, but I'm not holding my breath and I'm not waiting to start living until that happens. And, I really love this for everyone. And in saying this, I want to be so unbelievably clear. I am, as some of you know, the biggest lover girl there is. I love love. I am such a romantic. And I in no way want to encourage a movement of people not being in the space of love, connection, and partnership. However, I think that there's so many ways that the sort of marketization of love and relationships, and the way that we've sort of really been programmed to believe that um, once we find the person that we're meant to partner with, then our life begins. But until then, we're incomplete. And what I find that does is really put such an energetic frequency of scarcity and fear and grasping, and not our most empowered self when we are in the space of connecting and in relationships. And I'm going to say something that, I mean, I don't know if it's controversial. I don't care today, but I think it's certainly against the common, mm, like the common way that we think about relationships, because I think there was a point where we just decided that like really being casual with one another as we're dating, and I'm just going to say the thing, a lot of casual hookups and casual sex just became something that um, was really normalized, and in many cases, uh, became something that we viewed with a sense of empowerment, right? Like I can have all of these exchanges with other people, and sex can be just sex and I don't feel anything. And let me be so unbelievably clear, I say this without one hint of judgment or righteousness, or sort of looking down on that, because I was young once, and certainly I don't know that I've ever fully been that person that could just be intimate without like any sort of connection to someone. Like sometimes you can meet someone, people have like a shared eye gaze, and they go home with each other. I've never been that person, right? And that's not to say that I've not had some drunken nights of like hookups or whatever. But I'm saying all this to say, I think there's a way that we've really conflated, and some of this had to do with birth control and things of that nature, making it so that there wasn't the risk of a pregnancy when we were intimate with someone, but that it's sort of been, especially for women, something that has been empowering to have um, casual intercourse with someone that is not someone that you are deeply connected to or have any sort of like even romantic feelings about. Now, here's what I'm going to say, and I would love to hear your thoughts, and I would love to hear, if you disagree with me on this. I find a lot of times that we have been really socialized to do a lot of gaslighting ourselves around this topic. And I say this because I watch and have watched for years so many clients really talking about the fact that they are having casual encounters, and certainly with the person that they're having these encounters with, speaking about it as if it's very casual for them, when the sort of underbelly of what's happening inside, the way I feel about this, and maybe what I would love in a, a perfect world or in a different scenario, is for me to have a little bit more of the experience of you caring about me more deeply than it feels um, like you do or we do about each other. And I gotta say, like, I actually don't think that is a gendered thing. I think that's something that we have socialized in both men and women, and that it's like you're sort of weak if you catch feelings for someone and you don't sort of put all your cards on the table, and um you're just not in that space of vulnerability, excuse me, around what you really want relationally, or what you would really hope for in a perfect world. So here's what I mean. If some part of me, if I close my eyes. And maybe it's better if I like speak about it in a more personal way, because maybe it just makes it more tangible. I find that to be true for me. Okay, so I decided for myself at a period, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, that I just really wanted an epic love experience, and that I wasn't interested in anything less than something that was deeply inspiring and life affirming and expansive in all the ways. And until it was that, which would make it justified for me to remove myself from the space of my self-partnered status, or, you know, the sacred nature of my solitude, that didn't interest me. And I was very like, this is the truth of what I feel. And in that realm, I didn't have casual encounters, or, I really didn't date. And what I found was that, well, two things. There was such a deeper level of hmm, intimacy with myself and clarity about who I am without the distractions of romantic encounters, because I find that for me, and I know this is the case for so many people, we can get so wrapped up in the the mind chatter and the distraction of what happens when we're in these romantic encounters, that we're not fully engaging in the things that we came into this life to do, that are beyond the romance and the why didn't they text me and what does it mean about me that this person is hot and cold, right? All of those things that I think have very much been programmed in us to be in that space. And I think it's a programmed distraction, you guys. And so, on so many levels, what I've been talking to clients and girlfriends and, myself is like, what does it look like to be in this space of the non-negotiable around what I want for myself, and that I'm not interested in anything less than that, right? So if, for instance, you're like, yeah, Danae, everything you're saying, like, I'm on board with that. That sounds amazing. I want this epic love story, and I want someone who I just feel so impacted and inspired and moved by all that they are. Yes. And that's a lot, right? Like that's kind of hard to do. And I would still like to have intimacy. I would still like to have connection with people in the meantime. And what I would say, and this is where the unpopular opinions come in, um, you're sort of sending mixed messages to life and the universe about what you want, because here's what all of us can catch feelings and feel. I mean, for almost anyone, because we are human and we are intrinsically connected to one another. But I think a lot of times our muscle of discernment sort of gets softened, and we're not really in that space of getting so clear about whether something is justified or not. And what I find ends up happening when we're in that space of, yeah, let me just like hang out with this person because they're cool and it's nice to have some, some intimate touch and all of the things that, yes, we're human. These things feel good. But then what ends up happening is this person isn't the person that I would choose, ultimately, because of the way I'm expanded by who they are, because of the way that I'm so inspired and it's aligned and all of these things. And so I make them wrong for that, right? I start to pick apart all of the things that they could be doing differently and where they need to grow and how they're not loving me in the way that I want to be loved, and they're not showing up. And if you would just change this, then we would get along better because of this. And I got to tell you guys, this is what I have seen for years happens with the couples that come in to see me. And I'm like, none of this just started. It's like literally where you started off in your space of dating. And then at some point you thought that I will just continue to mold someone into something that is a little bit more in alignment with what I would desire in a partnership. And I got to say, you guys, can't get there from there. That's not actually, in my opinion, how this thing of aligned love and connection works. Now, I want to be clear, relational psychology would, and for the most part, does disagree with me. They will say things like relationships are built and, we have to communicate clearly what our needs are. And um, this is one of those places, and this is a little bit of the book that I'm working on where I call poppycock. Like, it is not what I believe to be true, what I have experienced for myself, and what I think we should be spending our unbelievably sacred energetic resources doing with our lives. I don't think it honors one another as souls. And I think that there's just a better, more divine way of going about it, right? And so, I think if we're in that space of dating something that's like, we'll see how it goes, and it's not like the most aligned fit, but we'll try it out for a while and I enjoy their company or whatever. I think that is sort of the space of distracting ourselves from something larger. And we have really been conditioned to believe that human beings are like objects for distraction. And mm, I disagree that there's like no harm in that, right? That it's sort of a benign thing to treat one another like something we do to spend our time. And like I'm not thinking of, like, I can't find the word that I mean exactly, but that I think there's a way that we see in the world and the way that we are meeting one another with just so much discord and mm, malicious energy that is sort of as a result, I believe, of this thing where we've sort of moved away from this understanding of one another and seeing one another as sacred. And I really believe that one of the ways we can bring back this level of attunement to one another's divinity and just slowing down our process so that we can really be in a deeper space of discernment is to pull that energy back to ourselves. And I was saying to a girlfriend the other day why I believe so wholeheartedly, you guys, I would wish a period of sacred celibacy for everyone. Real talk. Um, because I think there is just such a recalibration of your energetic frequency and your energetic resources that happens when you pull all of what your sensual, intimate energy is back to yourself, right? When you pour all of that, because that's second chakra energy, so that's creative life force flow. And when you pull all of that back and start to pour it into yourself, all of a sudden what you do and become and create in the world is so potent. Um, and most of the time, the reason we're so resistant to doing this is because we've been really conditioned to believe in scarcity. And we just don't believe it's possible for us to attract something that is so unbelievably aligned that we don't have to do anything to make it happen. We don't have to get on anything and swipe or sort of figure out how to make something work that is like good enough, but really um, ultimately lacking in some of the fundamental components of what I know that I need to feel really seen and expanded and met, right? And vice versa. And I think in many ways, this is how we really continue to perpetuate historic pain points of believing that we are less than worthy of every single thing that we desire. And I truly believe that as we come into the space of remembering that we are the divine in human form, some of the way that we meet one another some of the way that we meet ourselves in our divinity, I believe will shift the way that we meet one another because I just know that it's like so much more that is available to us in terms of how we relate and what it looks like to be in such a space of sacred devotion. And that would be my wish for everyone. And yeah, I think what we have to get really honest with ourselves about is where we are trading attention for devotion. If devotion is something that you truly desire for yourself. Now, to me, the devotion, and I write about this in the book, is less to the specific person, so much as it is to the person that I become in the space of loving someone so well, right? Like in my relationship dynamics, what I want is to rise into the person that I have the potential of being, and using this relationship as the catalyst, as the motivation, because who this person is and the extent to which I am just so unbelievably moved by your soul's unique blueprint, it makes me want to rise to meet you in that frequency. It makes me feel so grateful that I'm even an energetic match for that field, that I want to continue to expand. And if everybody was doing this, can you imagine the collective shift that would occur, not only in the way that we meet one another in relationships, but the way that we meet everything, right? The way that we hold reverence for our lives in general and the earth that we're inhabiting and our neighbors and our communities. But it just is such this space of like, how do I come back home to myself and really start to cultivate, excuse me, a relationship with the divinity that resides within me, so that I start to experience that in the world around me. Because we can only meet the world to the extent that we've met ourselves. We can only hold with reverence another soul to the extent that we believe our soul is sacred. Um, and I really think we got to bring that back, you guys. But we don't experience what we want. We experience what we believe to be true. And if we believe that, the biological clock is ticking and there's only so many available people, and there's just, a lot of them are already married, or all of the things that I feel like I hear every day, it's like, well, if that's what you believe, that will be your experience of reality. But if you believe that the same frequency that created the cosmos and the wonders of nature, that you walk outside and sometimes see a bird or a bug or just, a flower with such detail, such magnificent life force flowing through it, and the colors and the energy and the mm, just experience of divinity in the natural world around us. Like there's so much intelligence to all of this, you guys. And I think our human arrogance, sometimes we forget and we believe that we are smarter than the source from which we came. But if all of that is possible, I mean, think about this for a minute. How ridiculous is it to believe that there is not a connection that I will experience if that's what I desire when it's time, right? But how do I sort of surrender the control and the timelines and the needing to be interfering with the outcome? And I always think about, when it comes to manifesting, how much it's really just like trusting in the timing and the process, which we really struggle to do, right? If you think about, like, okay, let's say you're pregnant and you know that there's a baby that's growing inside of you. You don't have any ability to control all of the intricate details and intelligence of how that baby is growing fingers and, all of its all of its aspects of its human self, right? But you trust that all of those things are going to happen because there's an intelligence, there's a divine unfolding that's happening, right? But then the minute that baby comes out of your body, you're like, thank you, universe, I'll take it from here. And my wisdom is better. Um, and again, I think it's so human. We all have an ego, the part of us that wants to edge God, source, universe out of the equation. But when you really stop and think about it, it's kind of ridiculous, right? Like, of course, there's an intelligence to all of this. Of course, every encounter that we have is with a wisdom and a curriculum and something that we are meant to learn and understand. But I really think we struggle to trust in that, right? So, yeah, I think to me, so much of this is like, how do we bring back the trust in just what is possible when we're in that space of devotion? But to me, the devotion is to an intelligence that is larger than our human comprehension, right? And so, I don't know. I'm curious to hear what you guys think about this. I'd love to hear your feedback in the comments, or just if you want to shoot me a DM or something on Instagram. But yeah, I'm curious about this paradigm of just us hooking up. It feels like it's shifting to me. It really does. It feels like people are feeling an urge to have something deeper and more meaningful, and we love to see it. I pulled a card from one of my favorite decks that I think I've used on here before, but this is the Muse Tarot. Ooh, dené. That was very loud. Apologies. And the card that I pulled was the Eight of Emotion, which in this deck, maybe you guys can see that. It's cool because it kind of is like the energy of walking away, which maybe we're walking away from a certain way of interacting with one another. But it says the Eight of Emotions, keywords: walking away, healing old wounds and stories, choosing a better path for yourself, being disappointed, finding a better fit, letting go to make space for the new, the first day of a new life. I love that last phrase, the first day of a new life, because with every death, a rebirth is soon to follow. And this is not the card, this is me saying this, but if we think of any of the things that we release as making space for the new, it just starts to put us in the frequency of possibility. Yeah. The prompt for this one is unveiling the sun. The eclipse has unfurled its thickest protection, and it has blocked the blinding lights of illusion. It has lifted her strange sensation of being dulled and numbed and stopped her false happy. Wow. It has cast everything with a sheen of honest magic. And for the first time, she has seen it all for what it really is. Like a switch flipped, she has dropped it all the baggage, all the lifetimes, all the teachers, all the broken dreams. Oh, how often she has stayed when she didn't want to. This gave me chills. How often she has done so much for them and never for herself. She realizes now as she walks away just how far off course she has twisted and how much she has changed. With this lifting of the spell, she can see everything in its lucidity. She asks you to bravely let go with her today, to cut the cords that need cutting, and to courageously choose your own self and your own love. I mean, and the poem at the end says, enjoy the shedding of escape and ease, not here on horizons it looms. She walks away and she walks away and heads towards her life, a future of bliss and of blooms. I love this card. I love this card for this conversation so much because I know someone is listening to this, and maybe in a dynamic with someone where there's not a lot of clarity, maybe in something that you know is not fully meeting you in the space that you long to be met. And if that's you in a relationship dynamic like that, I want to invite you to really think about what you are believing ultimately about the abundant nature of the universe. I want you to ask yourself, do I believe that every single thing that I could ever long to experience is not only possible, it's already done. It's literally just hanging out in escrow, waiting for me to remember how unbelievably worthy I am of all that I want, so much more. And while I believe that love is such an unbelievably sacred gift, I don't believe it's a gift that we are entitled to if we are not holding it with that level of reverence, meaning it's that thing that I say sometimes of like, we're not entitled to anything, but we are worthy of a life beyond our wildest dreams. And it's different. It's like, because the entitled part is the part of us that thinks my ego mind can manufacture something and make it happen. The worthy part remembers that we are divine and knows that nothing I'm meant to experience could ever possibly miss me. And a lot of times my thinking and my um, maneuvering is too limited in thought for the truth of who and what I am and what I came to experience. And so I think, yeah, I'm really kind of obsessed with this idea of bringing back devotion to the way we are experiencing ourselves and our love lives and just what we mean to one another and how we want to hold that, right? And to me, this is like us coming into a spiritual maturation process, right? And that we are going to put down some of the ways of being that are sort of, in that perpetuation of some of our earlier pain points and really saying, like, I'm ready to step into my spiritual authority and I'm ready to be present in my life as the gift that it is. And in order to do that, I really have to have this practice of sacred presence with myself and with my soul space, right? And if I'm using other people and, you know, just all sorts of things as distractions, I can't access that intuitive wisdom that resides within. And I got to tell you guys, I think in the next few years, we are going to see why tapping into our superpowers, which are that innate wisdom that I'm speaking of in that way, is going to be the most crucial thing we can possibly prioritize as a human race. And so if you feel me, that's amazing. Because that means that we are in alignment on that frequency. And I do believe that more and more of us are like calling in these different timelines, and that there is a timeline, I believe, of unity consciousness. And when it comes to love, sacred union, that eros gamos, and this thing of just putting down some of the wounding and the ways that we have maybe not been in the fullest expression of who and what we are when we are meeting one another relationally. And I think that we need to cultivate deeper spiritual tools to do this, right? So if you're interested in diving into like the how with me and doing some of this work in a more tangible, like working it out together way, I I just put together a program that I'm really, really excited about, you guys, because I was thinking about the journey that I've been on personally for the last 6 years. 6 years? Yes. Well, maybe almost seven. Geez, it's May. Almost 7 years um, since I, left, or since a marriage that I was in ended, and just that I've been in this space of really knowing myself in a deeper, more intimate way for this period of time. And I was thinking about like how liberated I feel in this season of my life, right? And some of this is just like feeling that as a woman, I've come into a more mm, like self-accepting, grown version of self. But a lot of it is the spiritual principles that I continue to draw from that just have cultivated not only so much peace, but so much flourishment and awakened life force energy in my life. And I feel like, oh, I just want to share these tools and this way of experiencing myself in this life with others that may find this resonant in terms of the path that you feel called to walk. And so the program that I created is called the Liberated Self. And it's going to be a 10-week intensive. We're going to meet for 2 hours every week on Tuesdays, starting on June 23rd. And I want this just to be a really sacred container of those who want to do the deeper spiritual work, the deeper aligning with the capital S self. Someone asked me, Danae, when you put the S with parentheses around it, why do you do that? And I was saying that to me, this capital S self is the self that is rooted in that soul consciousness, in the consistent awareness of who and what I am. Because I think we've sort of had this thing of understanding that we are souls, but not moving through our day-to-day lives with that level of consciousness, that level of soul consciousness, right? But I think that's shifting, and that it's not going to be, every once in a while we go to a retreat and we have a spiritual experience and then we come back to our lives and sort of feel like, yes, but this is quote real life. Like all of it is the same frequency when we decide to be in that dance of holding presence for the physical, but also the metaphysical. And so that's what we're going to get into. And if that's something that interests you, I will put a link in the show notes. And you can use the promo code EARLYBIRD to save 15%. And I believe that is until, um, let's just say until June 1st, because I get to decide. I'm Danae. Kill me sometimes. Yeah, let's say until June 1st. If you use the promo code EARLYBIRD, you can save 15% on your access to join us. And I'm really excited. Some people are already signed up who I'm excited to move through this with. And if that feels resonant for you, I would love to have you join us. Thank you for joining me. I hope you have a beautiful week and take really good care of all that you are. We'll see you again soon.